Good evening, class. Tonight we are going to have a look at Transformers Classics Ultra Magnus. Now, this figure was packaged with, I believe it was Skywarp, who we'll have a look at another time, but we're going to have a look at Ultra Magnus tonight. Maybe we'll have a comparison with Optimus Prime, because that's what Ultra Magnus loves, being compared to number 1, because he really is number 2. Does that make him a... Anyways, we'll stop there. Too many bad potty jokes. So, the truck form. At least we can see here that it rolls. Some of the differences between it and Optimus Prime, like, I mean, it is a repaint. Ultra Magnus kind of colors, so lots of blue, lots of white. But if we compare it with the Optimus Prime, we can see even the light gray pieces on the Prime are more of a dark gray over here. We have the gold wheels on the Ultra Magnus versus the silver, if we can see it over there, from the Optimus Prime. But one thing I do like pointing out, or I like to see, is that if we look at even the wind vane up top, the design on the paint is different. And if we look at even the side of the truck, it's not like they just did the exact same paint job, they did modify it a little bit. So while, you know, let's face it, it is a white Optimus Prime, they did make at least some effort to make it a little bit different. So there's a look at the truck. So what we can do is we're going to transform this. Obviously it's going to transform in an incredibly similar manner to the Optimus. So we're going to get rid of all this junk first. And fold down the sides, the legs. Pop his feet forward, pull that part. Knee pads. I think I probably chuckled at that with the Optimus Prime review too. Anyways, I know, I'm really immature. We're going to pull apart the front a little bit. And we're going to rotate that. Pop up his head. I'm kind of doing this. Probably disjointed, but that's okay. We're going to fold the wheels up. Can you do that? There we go. I'm going to pop that in place. There we go. Sorry about that. His arms are down. And then the sides of the truck. We're going to fold them out of the way. Now, I find the robot mode, actually, we can see more of the differences between the Magnus and the Prime. So I'm going to have to transform Optimus Prime in a second as well. But first we can look at the Ultra Magnus himself. So again, in terms of the colors, it's what we'd expect. It's a lot of white, and this time it's more, it seems like it's more accented with the blue than vice versa. We've got the red Autobot emblems here on his shoulders. It looks kind of like what we would expect him to look like without his power armor. He's got the blue eyes, and again, the translucent, can we see that? Plastic on the back of his head, so if we had a decent light source, his eyes would shine blue. His black hands, again, it's Optimus Prime, but it's white. And then we can take the wind vane, we can fold that out, and that becomes a really big gun for his one hand. And then we can take the smokestacks. I always have problems popping this part out. Flip that out. Do the same thing on this side if I can manage it. There we go. Pop up the handles, fold together, and we've got the twin kind of machine gun-esque weapon for his other hand. So there we go. Now, so it, oh, kind of limp there. There we go. So he's got the big guns. He's, again, repaint of Optimus Prime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly grab the Optimus Prime. Put Ultra Magnus here in the back where he belongs. And then let's see how quickly I can do this. We've seen most of this before, I think. But we just want to look at some of the differences between the Prime and the Magnus. Especially in the robot mode, I find said that's where they're a lot more noticeable. Feet down. Oops, wrong way. So besides just kind of the general color scheme, obviously Optimus Prime is going to be colored like we would expect Optimus Prime, and Ultra Magnus is going to be different. I find that once we have them both in their robot form, we can start to see, again, some more of the differences. Now, in terms of the mold, obviously it's going to be the same, but for me the differences are seen in the coloring. And it seems to me, as I'm talking, as I'm trying to get that done, there we go. The main, well, actually, there's another kind of big difference, but the main difference seems to be in the paint. It seems to me, or just in my opinion, that they kind of, I don't want to say cheaped out, but kind of quit early when they could have added more detail. So, there we go. It's probably not a record for transformation time, but that wasn't too bad, right? So let's start with the knee pads. Here we've got, again, the extra little bit of color here, the yellow, and we see on Ultra Magnus they're not painted at all. If we look, torso, that's painted a little bit differently. He's got the Autobot emblems. Optimus Prime does not. They just filled that in. Again, on the forearms, we've got the extra yellow highlight we have here, and we don't have that on the Ultra Magnus. It seemed like they just kind of went, whatever, we don't need it. We can see we've got the blue on the legs here. Sorry, can we see that? Optimus Prime. And again, it's all one solid white piece on Ultra Magnus. So why that is, I don't know. It would have been nice if they had given the Ultra Magnus a little more detail. Now, the other thing about this Ultra Magnus figure is that it is made with a different grade, different quality of plastic than the Optimus Prime. Oh, sorry. Side gun. Again, they've used a little bit of paint on Optimus Prime here, not so much on Ultra Magnus. Again, just kind of feels like they cheaped out a little bit. But sorry, I digress. The paint, especially the legs, the lower legs, the weapon, even this weapon, it feels like it's a softer, a cheaper grade of plastic, to be perfectly honest. And again, I don't know what that's about, but maybe because, let's face it, is a repaint of the original. Now, in terms of some of the other things we can do with this figure, they're going to be similar to the Optimus Prime. But on the back here, what we can do, see if I can remember how to do this, we can put the weather vane, or the wind vane, or whatever it is, back over here, and we can take this part, and we can pop the smokestacks on top. There we go. And we can mount them on his back. So one, it's actually kind of nice, because then you can just have them out of the way, if you want. And then, again, we can have the shoulder-mounted cannons. One of the things that's actually kind of neat is that we can pretend he beats up his brother in arms, Optimus Prime. And he can steal Optimus Prime's guns too. So we can really load him up, even without the City Commander armor. So there we go. We have our Ultra Magnus there all looking ready to rock and roll and beat the tar out of people attacking Autobot City, which he really didn't for a City Commander and Guard. I don't know if he did that good of a job. But anyways, certainly wasn't a good leader. I know, let's all pick on Ultra Magnus. We shouldn't do that. At any rate, you know, this figure's not too bad. It's kind of one of those ones that I didn't know if I was going to get at a toy show or not, but I saw it, and actually at the end of the day I was able to talk the guy down and get it pretty cheap. So this is why I picked it up. I didn't really buy it for the Skywarp. We'll look at Skywarp later. Now in terms of articulation, we can rotate his head. Same articulation as the Prime. We've got the joint here, and the shoulder can go all the way around, so we've got some good movement there. The upper part of the torso can move on its own, as well as the lower part. It will go all the way around. The arm does rotate, and it does bend at the elbow. Aren't really going to have anything in the wrist, which is too bad. The hips are on a joint, that kind of double, it's not a ball joint, but the double joint here for the hips. We can rotate at the knee as well as bend. And the foot can go back and forth. So again, all the same posability as Prime. He's just white and blue instead of red and blue. If I was going to grade this figure, I don't believe I graded the original because, well, I think it was before I was grading things. But if I was going to grade this figure, you know what, I give it, we're going to say a B+. The original one is probably somewhere in the A range, at least. This one is going to be a B+. And the reason that it's not an A is because, let's face it, it is a repaint, and I'm a little bit sketchy on those. The plastic is a little bit weaker. You can feel it, especially in some of the joints. And it seems like they just kind of got tired and didn't paint it all. So I think I would give Ultra Magnus a B+. I mean, it would get displayed with the rest of my Optimus Primes. But probably still not as good as the original. Plus some of the other variants are kind of cool too, right? So there you have it. there is Transformers Classics Ultra Magnus, and we compared him to the Optimus Prime. So thank you very much, class dismissed, and have a good night.